Hey guys, it is November. I don't know where that came from. May 10th, 2022. I don't know. I'm tired today. And we are still in chapter 28. We're in chapter 28, verse 6 to chapter 28, verse 9. Now, we've seen what's going on with Jacob. These last couple verses have not been focusing on Esau. So we're going back to Esau. And starting in verse 6, it says, Esau knew that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Paddan Aram to find a wife, that he had warned Jacob, you must not marry a Canaanite woman. He also knew that Jacob had obeyed his parents and gone to Paddan Aram. It was now very clear to Esau that his father did not like the local Canaanite women. So Esau visited his uncle Ishmael's family and married one of Ishmael's daughters, in addition to the wives he already had. His new wife's name was Mahlah, and she was the sister of Nebaioth, and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son. So we're bringing it back a little bit. Here's Ishmael. We've been focusing on Isaac. So Ishmael, if we remember correctly, was told by God that he would live in open hostility towards his relatives, meaning Isaac. So here we see Esau, Isaac's son, coming to Ishmael and marrying one of his children. Now, I don't really think that Esau knew about what God had said. I think that Ishmael is really trying to show his father that he's listening. So he's not marrying the Canaanite women. I don't know who his other wives are, because it doesn't mention that. It just says along with his other wives. So I'm not quite sure where these other wives came from. But we see a contrast here. We're starting to see a contrast here. We see Jacob going to Rebekah's relatives to find a wife. And then we see Esau going to Ishmael's relatives to find a wife. Now, it all leads back to Isaac, because Isaac was the promise in the covenant. Ishmael was not. And it's sometimes we see things, or we think we see things, just like Esau thinks he's following what his father wants, but he's walking into someone who has open hostility towards his father and his relatives. So it's this idea that sometimes we can't see 2 feet in front of us. And Esau knows one thing. Isaac does not like Canaanite women. That's why Isaac sent Jacob away. But Esau is trying to figure out, on his own it seems, how to please his father. How to get a wife that would please his father. And in doing it on his own, he seems to be stepping into territory that maybe he shouldn't be in. Going to Ishmael, going to a person who has open hostility towards Esau's father. And sometimes we do this. Sometimes we see something and we think it's the right way to go because it seems to make sense. But in the end, if we would have just stopped and followed what God wanted, we would be on a different trajectory. We would be on a different path. And when we go it on our own, we end up making some decisions that, in hindsight, are not the best decisions. And I don't know exactly what this means for Esau yet. But I know that Isaac was the one the covenant was about, and Ishmael was the one that when Sarah and Abraham tried to do it on their own, they created through Hagar. So we see this contrast again. And it seems like Esau, in theory, is trying to do what Isaac wants him to do. In theory. And how many times in our lives, that in theory, do we do what God wants us to do? It doesn't happen that way. We seem to get ourselves in mess, but in theory, that was what it looked like. We need to sometimes stop and be still. And that's hard for us. And we need to trust that God has a plan. And we need to trust that God can overcome whatever it is that we're facing. God could overcome what Jacob had done. God could overcome a lot of things. But Esau took it into his own hands. So, like I said, I'm not quite sure what happens to Esau. But I think we're going to find out. But where in your life can you be still? Can you say, okay, God, I'm extremely worried about this? Or, in theory, this looks like a good idea. And where can you say, all right, I'm going to be still and I'm going to wait for your direction? And that's sometimes hard for us. And most of the time, if I'm to be honest, it's hard for me. Because I want to do it the way I think should be done. I hope you guys see Jesus in all you do today. And I hope you guys see God's promise all around you. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.